Stop those wagons! Fall the line! Fall the line!
The Game of Thrones loot train battle isn't about two great armies clashing on the battlefield. It messes with what we unconsciously expect from a Game of Thrones battle by using perspective, music, and visual storytelling to goad us into having a much stronger reaction than we've had towards any other war sequence in the series to date. We're going to explore why the battle works so well and just how it emotionally manipulates us. The whole battle takes place over 11 minutes and 50 seconds. For reference, Battle of the Bastards, the last major clash in Season 6, was 23 minutes long, but the build-up actually starts 1 minute and 49 seconds earlier with this scene. But this scene, with its wide shots of the landscape and the loot train heading towards King's Landing, isn't just here to show the audience the scale of the soon-to-be battlefield, as it's also where we're given our first emotional connection to a new central character, in this case, Dickon. His experience with war as a chaotic, distressing event rather than the glorious event he's been told about prepares us for the oncoming fight even though we don't initially realise it. It's not going to be honourable, it's going to be harrowing.
Listen.
This is a battle based around anticipation. For the first 50 seconds of this conflict, we see nothing but panic and preparation, conveyed with 16 different shots, all of which feature a lot of movement in both the foreground and the background, and with multiple directions of travel. The shots are busy, building the tension and dread surrounding the arrival of the Dothraki horde. Long, slow pan shots of the environment like this one, coupled with the rising score, build the anticipation, especially given that the audience, at this stage, is expecting a dragon. A dragon we don't see until 4 minutes after the initial setup for this fight. It's all about making us wait, which isn't a payoff typically used for battle scenes when you want as much action as possible in a short period of time. The slowly building music crescendo puts the audience on edge and amps up even more tension as you wait for the battle to begin. This technique is called a Shepherd Risse glissando, which, as Vox has recently pointed out, Hans Zimmer uses extensively, albeit in a more extreme way, in his film scores like here in Dunkirk. You can also hear it when the Batpod accelerates, and even in Mario 64 as the plumber ascends these stairs. This technique, combined with its wide shots of the line of soldiers, intercut with close-up shots of scared or puzzled faces, drives home the emotion. The characters are prepared physically, but unprepared mentally. This is an unexpected battle, and at this stage we, as the viewer, are worrying about the fate of these soldiers. Having just seen them lounging around in a more informal context, these fighters are more sympathetic to us than usual. We realise now that they're just men, not a faceless, unstoppable force. The anticipation continues even after the Dothraki arrive on the battlefield. Unlike in other standout battle scenes, like the Battle of Isengard in the Two Towers where the two sides clash almost instantly, it takes almost 2 minutes after the arrival of the Dothraki for the two sides to physically clash. During the entire 11 minutes and 59 seconds, only 20 out of the 347 shots are of the two armies actually coming together in close quarters combat. We've built up an idea in our heads about what the battle between these two armies should look like, but we don't see a lot of fighting once they meet. Instead, more time is spent on the soldiers suffering and their inability to counterattack, which shows how unprepared they are for Daenerys' forthcoming onslaught, and how unprepared we are as viewers for the horrors that are about to unfold. Another key reason this battle is so good is the way it plays with perspective to make the scene more about chaos than heroism. I've already mentioned the connection we feel to Dickon Tarly, who begins the scene by telling us what war is really like.
I didn't expect it to smell like that.
Now that he's shown his vulnerable side, we care about him, which is why he's included in the battle. Notice that the less sympathetic character, Randall Tarly, who advocates flogging stragglers, isn't shown at all during the battle. This battle is about sympathising with those in it, not about rooting for one character over another. During the fight, you're repeatedly put in the shoes of the fighters. From over-the-shoulder shots to sequences where you're riding on a horse like a Dothraki, we're brought as close to the action as possible, rather than consistently following one central character, like we did with Jon in Battle of the Bastards. In this fight, he was the one we cared about most, so to increase the tension, the camera followed his movements through the battlefield. The loot train battle is far more about understanding the mass casualties of war and how different it looks from each side. In one bit, you're even looking at the battlefield as Drogon, the weapon incarnate. When Bronn's running through the chaotic battlefield trying to get to the blister, it's as if we're looking through the eyes of a soldier whose focus snaps between Bronn and the distractions around him. We're brought closer to the unfiltered horrors of war than we want to be. This is because the camera angles are not where we typically expect them to be, instead being positioned just above ground level, meaning all the shots have us looking upwards and in a constantly perilous position where it feels like the soldiers could collide with the viewer at any moment. This battle isn't about winning, it's about surviving. You're given multiple perspectives, from the main players such as Jaime and Drogon, to the supporting characters like the Lannister foot soldiers and the Dothraki screamers, which confuses any clear ideas of right or wrong. With most battles in movies and on TV, you know who you want to win. In this one, you don't. We support Daenerys, but we like Jaime and Bronn too, and we don't enjoy seeing their soldiers being burned alive and massacred by the Dothraki. If Cersei were leading them in battle here, we'd probably feel a lot better about the Lannisters' defeat. Our ideas about who we want to win are constantly in flux, thanks to a level of sophisticated cinematography we don't typically see in movie or TV battles. Comparing it to another of Game of Thrones' epic battles, we can see how shooting from different characters' perspectives can influence who the audience roots for. At the Battle of the Bastards, we mostly only get shots from Jon's side, almost never from Ramsay's, because Ramsay is the enemy, the aggressor, and so having less shots from his point of view makes it harder to sympathise with him. It's also personal, much more about Ramsay versus Jon. The loot train battle is more about the infantry and their suffering. Interestingly, we never see anything from Daenerys' perspective. Even when we're up in the air, we're mostly seeing the battlefield as Drogon. Unlike with the Battle of the Bastards, the showrunners don't want us sympathising with Daenerys. Instead, we're made to feel like she's the one we should be scared of. The arrival of Tyrion on the battlefield towards the end would be unusual for a battle scene, except for in this case he has a very important role to play. That of the audience. In this situation, Tyrion becomes a viewer of the battle much like everyone at home, and the audience can instantly identify with what he's thinking, meaning there's no need for dialogue. Like everyone who's been watching for the past 9 minutes and 34 seconds of this battle, he's conflicted about which side he should root for. On one side there's his queen, Daenerys, who's given him her approval and made him her hand, a relatively short time after meeting him. It's something his father never thought him worthy of, but Daenerys realises his true potential. On the other side there's his brother. Having saved him from jail and sticking up for him in front of Cersei, their relationship has blossomed and, more importantly, he's the only blood relation Tyrion has a meaningful connection with. Seeing it from Tyrion's point of view, and understanding his thinking without a word being said, is one of the reasons we feel so conflicted about this fight, and why it's so impressive. As I've mentioned, the reason this battle is so memorable is because of the emotional journey it takes you on in such a short space of time. At the beginning of the fight, the musical tone is designed to make you feel worried for the Lannisters. As the sound builds, so does the sense that something bad is going to happen.
Get back to King's Landing.
I'm not abandoning my army.
You're the commander, not a damn infantryman.
Then, just 3 minutes later, with a shot of the Dothraki standing on top of their horses, we hear the sound of heroic trumpets, creating a feeling of victory. But it's for the Dothraki, the opposite side to the one we're currently seeing things from. It's something you don't often see in cinema or TV. There's always a hero and a villain, but in this case we have two quite likeable characters who are major players in the story, so the producers need to be able to communicate that sense of conflict, not just in the physical sense with clashing swords and fighting, but for who you emotionally want to win. Fast forward to the latter stages of the battle and the tone shifts again, this time back to the Lannisters. These are people who have killed tens of thousands, yet because of the way they're portrayed through the shots and musical score, we, again, feel a sense of loss as they're chased from the battle and killed. It's worth noting too that the screams from the Dothraki and the Lannisters become almost indistinguishable. There's so many of them that we can't tell which are war cries and which are people howling in agony. Again, we're confused about who to support because even though we prefer Daenerys over Cersei, we're told to pity the Lannisters through the imagery of the battle. This all leads up to the final sequence of the battle, where the audience's emotional conflict becomes even more apparent. One shot shows Drogon gliding over still water in an oddly peaceful sequence. It's about appreciating Drogon's beauty, about seeing him as an elegant creature, further confusing your emotions about the men burning alive below because of him. In the shots leading up to Drogon getting injured, Bronn is made out to be a hero, valiantly fighting against the Dothraki who's hunting him through the battlefield. The score as he loads the ballista is inspirational, but the instant the arrow connects with Drogon, he becomes the villain, with the music changing to one of sadness as the dragon plummets towards the ground. Let's not forget that ending either. There's a specific score which Thrones uses to let the audience know that they're experiencing, or are about to experience, the death of a character. We can hear it here during Hodor's death, here when Jon is in trouble at the Battle of the Bastards, and here after the Red Wedding. It's the same score we hear when Drogon gets hit by the arrow, and when Jaime sinks into the water. The repetition of this score throughout the show when major characters die makes us unconsciously wonder if Jaime really is dead when we hear it here in this sequence, even though we know it's unlikely for his character at this point. All these changes in perspective, music and shots take place over just 12 minutes. We're swung between emotions literally every second, meaning that at the end we're amped up, but not entirely sure why it's made us feel so different from any other battle we've seen. This battle isn't good just because of the way it looks or sounds. It's because it uses every filming technique at its disposal to manipulate how we feel. What could have been a simple battle between foot soldiers and cavalry instead overwhelms us with the horrors of war and complicates who we're supposed to be rooting for. The Battle of the Loot Train is one of the most carefully composed, exquisitely executed fights in Game of Thrones, and director Matt Shakman poured all his effort into making it not only a feast for the eyes, but a complicated portrayal of the show's changing warfare, and that's what makes it one of the best battle scenes in TV to date. Let us know what you thought of the battle in the comments below, click the boxes on the left for more content from us, and don't forget to hit that big button in the middle for more entertainment news, reviews, previews and features right here on GamesRadar Plus.